Hello neighbor, I'm Robert Burns and welcome once again to another edition of Sound Off Louisiana. And as you can tell, I have as my guest once again, and he may be about to break the record which Billy Broussard had previously held for most appearances on Sound Off. This is Sheriff Candidate C.J. Matthews. Now I want to address one thing before we go into this segment, which will be the second segment of the Kelsey Delatte alleged rape. I understand that there are probably folk out there that say, well, you're just airing all this now to try to influence the outcome of the election. And that's a fair assessment to make. But I want to make sure everyone understands, and I've gotten Mr. Matthews' clearance on this, irrespective of what the outcome of the election is on October the 14th, when I wake up on October the 15th, my resolve to get to the bottom of some things that are going on in that sheriff's office and also with the DA's office, District Attorney Ricky Babin, it will be no less, now hear what I'm saying, it will be no less on October the 15th than it is today. And I'm not going anywhere, and even if he should not emerge victorious, Mr. Matthews has assured me that he's not going anywhere if he should happen to not prevail. We're going to stay just as focused. There will be a bright spotlight put on the sheriff's office during the next 4 years. Mr. Weber may regret winning, in fact. And so...
we're doing everything we can to stop that. Now, the only thing is, Robert, we might slow it down a little bit during hunting season. Okay.
I know in one of the earlier episodes you said, look, I'm going away for 2 weeks for hunting, so you'll get that pass.
That's it.
But I am so thrilled to know that a magnifying glass, should that be necessary. Now I'm trusting it, obviously, if he wins, I think a number of these cases are going to start going in a different direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would hope so. Look, I'm going to just tell you, and he knows that, if I get reports that he may be doing, and I seriously doubt that would happen, but if I did get those reports, I will scrutinize C.J. Matthews with the same vigor that I have scrutinized Bobby Weber, Jeff Wiley, and now it's leaning toward Ricky Babin. So with that, I'm going to let Mr. Matthews, now let me just say this, we are going to provide you with a total of 1 hour and 15 minutes of audio taped conversations transpiring in which Ricky Babin is in the room, Bobby Weber is in the room, and Kelsey is in the room along with her husband, Bo. And I believe there's one other person whom I don't know the name of. So
her name is Tara Whiteside.
Tara Whiteside, okay. Thank you for that clarification. And folks, I cannot encourage you enough. If you talk about being well worth the amount of time, it's 1 hour and 15 minutes. I can't encourage you enough. Set aside that amount of time. Give up an hour for your favorite soap if need be. This is going to be far more informative, far more useful for you, and rarely would I suggest that you get this kind of an insider's guide of what can transpire during a prospective prosecution, particularly when it involves an influential person in city government, such as it does in this matter, that being Dempsey Lambert's son, who is the alleged perpetrator in this matter. So having said all of that, Mr. Matthews, I'm sorry to infringe on your time, but I wanted to have all of that laid out, and the floor is now yours. Go ahead and talk about some of the things that you heard in that 1 hour and 15 minutes of audio. And every now and then I'll chime in too, because I've listened to it thoroughly, have some observations of my own, but this is your show, so you take it away.
Thank you, Robert. Like you alluded to earlier, this taped conversation between the participants occurred on June 23rd, 2022, is my understanding.
Okay.
From the victim.
Okay.
It's at times it's hard to listen to because now I can say this, that Mr. Babin held his composure and was about as professional could be.
All right.
There. Can't say that for Bobby Weber.
Yeah, I think the audio speaks for itself. It does get pretty irate at times.
But, ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the things you have to understand. That's your chief law enforcement officer for the parish, who is going to talk to a rape victim the way that he does.
Okay.
And if you're fine with that, then you pull the lever for it. Mm-hmm. But if you're not fine with that, you got to go another route.
Yes.
Okay, so without further ado, and Robert's probably going to have some comments in here. One of the first things that I noticed when the conversation began, once they got past the pleasantries, is that Bobby was saying, you know, the what do you call it, affidavit? He doesn't know what an arrest warrant is. It contains two parts. It's an affidavit, and then it's actually the warrant at the bottom.
For a sheriff.
Yes, you know, maybe he's never written one. I don't know, because I've been there for 30 years, and I've wrote a ton of them, and even though I've been out of law enforcement for coming up on 5 years now, I still know what it is.
You don't forget how to ride a bike.
No, you don't. It's kind of like burned in. And then as they're going on a little further into it, when he's trying to say or allude to the fact that, you know, you've had 2 grand juries and a judge review, and you don't like it, and you can smirk if you want to. How are you, first of all, the logical progression of a case? Now, you're going to have some that says, oh no, you can grand jury it all day, every day. I get it. The normal, logical progression of a case is that it's reported, deputies respond, make a determination if detectives are needed, crime scene, so on and so forth. Interviews are done. Once that detective or detectives compile all the evidence, or at least enough evidence to determine probable cause, and you're going to hear that throughout this
they started to use PC, folks, so when you hear PC, that's probable cause.
And they're talking about there's plenty of it, tons of it, lots of it. Once that detective or detectives determines that probable cause has been established, and in layman's terms for what that is anything leading a prudent police officer to believe a crime has been, is being, or is about to be committed.
Okay.
Certainly her statement, the rape kit, statements is evidence. Okay, and it can be other things too. So at that point, the detective, with everybody that's in the room talking about PC, the easiest, most logical way that he should have handled this was to take what he knew, put it into that affidavit Bobby was stumbling over, and submit it to a judge who would either sign the warrant or deny it. Okay? Easy cheesy. They didn't do that, ladies and gentlemen. Why? They're never going to come on camera and tell you why. And once again, Mr. Burns, has your email blew up with Bobby Weber wanting to come on and explain all the Fred Corder and the Brandon Moran cases?
Not only has it not blown up in that, I haven't gotten emails or phone calls from people irate with me in saying that the stuff you put out is not accurate. Now, I did have one encounter that happened here recently I'm not going to go into. That was from a gentleman on the ballot. I'll let it go with that.
So, no wonder why we're at the point that we are. It's like, you know, and I like Ricky. I do. I can't see how he let this, or why it got so screwed up. And at one point, Bobby says, well, you know, we let the DA make the decision to grand jury. Why in the hell did Bobby abdicate his authority and kept punting it to the DA? If it wasn't political? Why didn't the detective, Rolinski, just write a warrant? And now, if the judge denied the warrant, for whatever reason, then say, hey, wait a minute, you know what? Let's take a look at this again. And then you got to come to that point to where either I've done my due diligence as a detective and a sheriff in a sheriff's office, We've investigated the case. We put it in affidavit form. We submitted it to the judge. The judge did not sign it.
Right.
I've done all I can do. Unless some new evidence comes forward.
Right, exactly.
I've done all I can do. At that point, you take it, Ricky, man, look, here's a case. Judge refused to sign a warrant. We think there's plenty of PC. Do what you got to do. Miss Delatte is the sheriff. We've turned that case over to the DA's office. They have it, and hopefully they're going to let you know what's going to happen shortly, whether they take it to the grand jury or not. But we've done everything that we can do, and if anything else comes up, by all means, please contact me or the detective, so we can definitely get on top of it right there, right then.
Yes.
None of that happened.
None of it happened.
None of it. In fact, at one point, ladies and gentlemen, this is probably going to be the one of the questions that pops into your mind while where was the detective? How come he wasn't in this meeting? The guy that knows everything about everything in this case, he's not in the meeting.
Not even got a place at the table.
And I'm going to tell you this. For the 30 years that I was at the sheriff's office and I was involved in a case, and somebody came in and met with my boss, or my boss's boss, or the sheriff, if my ass wasn't in that meeting, I got called to that meeting.
Yes.
Or either they said, hey, look, Mr. Matthews is hunting right now, or he's on vacation or whatever. Can we reschedule a meeting on this day when he gets back? So we can have up to date, the latest, greatest, everything that's happened in this case. Sure. So I'm not giving you any assumptions on my part. We're going to give you the facts as they happen.
Yes.
Okay? None of that happened. And at some point, Bobby makes a statement, oh, it's just a he said, she said case. Well, what about the DNA? That changes things. And also the fact that according to the victim, and was not disputed by Sheriff Weber or the DA, that during questioning at some point, the suspect originally denied it. Nope, didn't happen.
Straight up.
Didn't happen. Knew it wasn't me. And then apparently, the young man's mother says, hey, look, there's some DNA in there.
That's going to be bad news.
It's going to be bad news. It was consensual. That's what the FBI would call a clue, ladies and gentlemen. At that point, you've caught him in a lie. He's gone from, oh, no, it never happened, it never happened, it never happened. It was consensual. So at that point, you can't believe anything he tells you. Now, his story has changed. The victim's story, according to everybody involved in this meeting, has stayed consistent. What the hell's going on? I don't know. Maybe if Bobby would have ever had some criminal investigative background while he was at the sheriff's office, he might be able to know this, ladies and gentlemen. And this is Detective 101. This is easy stuff.
And I'm going to just briefly say something. Folks, you may recall before, this went to a grand jury number 1. And I cannot remember, you help me out, CJ, but on one of the 2 grand juries, I don't know whether it was the first one or the second one, but they said it lasted all of 35 minutes.
That was the second one.
That was the second.
According to the victim, she didn't know when the first one was happening until it was over with, and she wasn't even brought into the grand jury to testify.
So then that would be the first one when she's referencing it lasted 35 minutes. Folks, do you realize that's barely longer than it's taking us to do this video? To put that in perspective, that's the entirety of the amount of time that this was spent in front of the grand jury, 35 minutes. Go ahead and pick it back up, Mr. Matthews.
And on that note, what the general public doesn't know is that the prosecution has a wide leeway. Of course, I'm not an attorney. I've just been a cop for 30 years, but I've been in the business, if you will. They don't have to put on the whole case. all they have to put on is what's favorable to the prosecution.
Right.
There's a lot of truth in the old statement, and I know a lot of you have heard this.
Everybody's heard it. Go ahead and say it.
You can indict a ham sandwich.
But I want to follow up on that. I know someone who's been in law enforcement a long time, and he said that is certainly correct. You can indict a ham sandwich. He said that DA can also steer them so far away from an indictment.
It is what the prosecution wants.
And I found it interesting that Mr. Babin admitted on these tapes, you're going to see, that he has taken things to a grand jury where he hoped they would not come back with an indictment. He cited a specific case. And I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but that's like saying I went into a LSU football game and I tanked it. You know? I don't follow it. I know he said, well, there was a potential identity situation and he did not want an indictment. Nevertheless, that's what he got. Go ahead, CJ. I'm trying to minimize the time today.
That's okay. It's allowing me to kind of put these.
Good. I bought you some time. Okay.
And Bobby makes a statement. There's nowhere to go after this.
Yeah, I heard that.
After the two failed grand juries. Whatever happened to the relentless pursuit of justice?
Sure.
You know,
and they won't show, they will not show, by the way, we had the first grand jury that she wasn't even told about. The second grand jury, which I'm now learning was 35 minutes since it was that one. Then thereafter, because she's not backing off, they just said, okay, let's go ahead and do what originally seemed like it would have been logical to do in the first place, and draft an application for an arrest warrant,
right.
Which is what you were alluding to initially. And then I believe this was presented before Judge Martin. And
that's what the statement says.
That's okay. That's what the statement says, and he declined to sign it. So they are stressing the point that, okay, we can't let you. Oh, that's where I was going. They're not being allowed to see this application for that search warrant. Okay. And I really found it interesting that Ricky Babin said, look, I can't show you that because we require closing the file. The file's not closed. We can still pursue this, even though Bobby says, look, it's over from my vantage point. But I noticed that Ricky Babin said in there, look, this might wind up making its way into a folder with some other stuff that you may get, and, you know, if it just happens, it happens. But I got to cover my own ass.
Look, bottom line is this. I think there was a bunch of double talk in there.
I know there was a lot of double talk.
You're trying to say, you know, I can't give it to you unless I close the case. Well, close the case and give it to her. Hell, it's been 2 years.
Well, further.
And if you put it on the shelf, Ricky, and you know this, and I'm not an attorney, but I even know this, if more evidence comes up, you reopen the case.
Well, sure.
It's not that hard to do.
Furthermore.
But why in the world would you not? Now, I can see, hey, look, I can't give you a copy to take home,
mm-hmm.
but I'm just going to give you a copy
to examine,
to read right here.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see, you know, what he put in the affidavit.
Well, and it begs the question then, folks may remember from the last episode, Bobby Weber openly saying, Chris, come on, take a look at the file.
Oh, absolutely.
Karen, come on in, take a look at the file.
Miss Trawler, come on, we're gonna show this. I can look good for you.
Yeah, how?
You know, and nobody believes it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, once again, that is in this tape, and when you listen to it, that's your chief law enforcement officer speaking to a rape victim about a case.
Yeah, but the bigger question is, if everything's closed, if none of this is public record, how in the world is Karen or Chris going to be allowed to see it? Because all I know is they've been told, we'll show it to you.
Well, you know, it seems to me like it's almost one of those things. Well, if you're going to go to the media and try to, you know, stir some stuff up, well, then we're going to make you look bad.
Well, that's what Bobby's viewpoint was. Mr. Babin seemed to take a different approach. He did think that might be a good idea. I mean, he did say that. Bobby Weber and...
Well, you know, but once again, you got to realize this too. Ricky Babin's not running for DA again.
Well, correct. And I'm going to advance it a little bit, just to advance to one other thing I found very, very, very interesting that Ricky Babin said on that tape. He said, okay, look, I'm going to see if I can't get Jeff Landry to take a look at this. Can't promise that he will. He's very difficult to reach. before I've had to deal with his people, but on this one, I'm gonna see if I can't contact him personally. And he said, now both of these gentlemen that are the husbands in this, they both happen to be employed at Turner Industries. And that prompted Ricky Babin to say, well, tell you what, I can contact Bert Turner. He would be the founder of Turner Industries. And I think I can probably get him to pull a favor with Jeff Landry. Folks, I was floored. I was floored when I heard that commentary coming out of his mouth. Now, he is still saying that, look, there's no guarantee Jeff Landry will take a look at this. He may not. He hasn't looked at many other stuff we've asked him to take a look at. He's very hard to reach, you know. But
let's look at the court case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They took that one too. Of course, there was this facade at the very beginning of,
no merit.
Nothing, exactly. So then media gets involved. They rekindled their case.
Correct.
And they send the girl a deal, hey, we're going to indict him. Or we're going to possibly indict him. We need you to get in touch with us.
Yeah.
So then they say, oh, well, we get a text back from an unknown number. I don't have nothing else to do with his case, and they close it. You know, they let the juvenile decide who gets prosecuted in sex crimes and who doesn't. So the whole schmear about the AG, and now, once again, back to the tapes, Bobby says when he goes on the tirade about the media, I don't think you're going to be satisfied until this is played out in the media. Why would you make a statement like that? Why would you not be compassionate towards a rape victim and just, you know, hey, look, I've been in those meetings where the victims, they ain't happy. And it's almost like nothing you can do is going to make them happy.
Sure.
You know, mamas who's lost babies. You know, and, you know, hey, we're working on the case. We're trying to find a guy that pulled the trigger. And, you know, they're just not happy. Sometimes you just got to sit there and you got to take it.
And maybe play somewhat role of psychologist too.
Right. You got to sit there.
And that's not what he appears to do.
You got to take it, and, you know, maybe when you leave that office,
you can let your frustration out in private.
That too, but maybe you need to do a little self-reflecting.
Yeah.
And put yourself in that person's shoes and empathize with them and say, you know what? We need to have a meeting. Get that detective back in here. Look, let's go a different route. Let's take a different rate. I don't care if you got to re-interview what else have we got to do? You know, there's other cases out there for sure.
Sure.
You know, if you of course, not that the Central Parish Sheriff's Office reports any of them, but there's a ton of car burglaries that happened a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, they've got cases to work, but as a detective, a rape case is definitely one of the highest priorities that you got. And
with a very lengthy statute of or prescription period that's nowhere close to running in this matter. And let's bring up another thing. They talk extensively in this tape about the fact that the alleged perpetrator said, look, I'm going to go ahead and agree to a plea deal. And Bobby Weber's quite intrigued by that. He said, look, we're going to have to look into that. It begs the question, a plea deal on what? You've not been arrested, you've not been indicted, and you're talking about doing a plea? And I think he made some other commentary thereafter about the fact that, well, yes, because my dad will be able to handle it. You'll hear it on the audio.
Exactly. And Bobby even makes a statement. If Dempsey was all that, you would have only got one grand jury. But other than that, you got 2 grand juries and a judge.
2 grand juries?
Well, basically, you're admitting that there's some political stuff going on, some shenanigans.
Correct.
Okay? Let's see here.
You take your time. I've infringed on your time. You
Bobby said he's done having meetings.
Yep.
Why? You the sheriff. The relentless pursuit of justice. If there's something comes up somewhere else, somewhere, some other time, you got to go back and have that. You can't quit. Okay? They kept saying, well, you know, you wasn't that intoxicated. You wasn't that intoxicated.
Yes, you're right.
Wait a minute. You got to stop for DWI. You was intoxicated enough to raise the suspicions of a state trooper to stop you for a DWI, but then again they say you weren't that drunk. And then Ricky Babin, you know, well, the test was done how long after the blow was drawn, like maybe 2 hours after the stop. And then, but you don't seem too inebriated at the stop. And then Ricky Babin says, well, you know, adrenaline is a hell of an upper. Okay, so which one is it?
Well,
you know?
Exactly.
We're talking in circles here.
Well, we are, and the clear inference there, and at one point either Bobby or Mr. Babin said it, I think it was Bobby, but I could be wrong. Forgive me, Bobby, if I falsely attributed this quote to you. But it said, everybody we talked with, it said, hey, look, you know, there was a lot of flirting going on, and you know, that, well, if all I can say is that, and he basically uses this as why the grand jury didn't come back with a true bill, that if a man's on top of you and he's doing what he's doing, everybody in the whole house is going to know, and you'd be shouting to the top of your lungs if you weren't any more inebriated than they're claiming you were. They're saying she was had her act pretty well together once the trooper had pulled her over. Bobby makes a point that you dropped something and were able to reach down and pick it up. Yeah, so they clearly, and if that's what their thoughts are, then you have to wonder what was the mindset when this was presented to the grand jury.
Absolutely.
Was it that, hey, things probably got a little carried away, and were they even told these were well, not lifelong, but 15-year friends? This was not some casual encounter, and I guess we have to ignore the fact that you have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old probably within 5 or 6 feet of this going on.
That's all you want to do is have them wake up and see this.
Oh, God. Yeah, exactly. So I think that, and as both she and her husband point out, if we weren't adamant that this happened against her will, we wouldn't go through all this.
Here once again, when Bobby goes on his tirade and he talks about he's being frustrated, why is he frustrated? Is it because the victim refuses to sit down and shut up?
That's what they.
And this is what, a year in front of an election, and I've already started my campaign back in the beginning of 2022, and this is in June. Okay. So he knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. And then the fact that now he's got a councilman's son allegedly committed a rape, and I'm sure he's getting an earful from the councilman. Mm-hmm. Hey, this and that and the other. So, and then the victim she's not having it. I'm not going to go quietly.
Yeah, I think that's
one day in court is basically what she says. Mm-hmm. And then, it's just giving him a horrible case of heartburn because they screwed this up. They botched the case from the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
And here we are today.
Yeah. And
is there any way to salvage this case? I hope so. Mm-hmm. And should I be elected, we will definitely re-examine it and then do everything that we can to and then don't get me wrong, once again, if I get into the case and there's something that's totally unknown to me,
yes, you can't know everything.
Absolutely, but from what I know, we've got to try. Mm-hmm. You can't give up. Mm-hmm. But apparently he's all too willing to throw his hands up and say, I'm not having any more meetings, and all this and that and the other. And how many other cases has he done this to? How many other victims out there that have come in and weren't satisfied or thought that it didn't go the way that it should have? And if you ain't got the wherewithal and the knowledge to sit down with them and say, hey, look, this is what happened. This is what they said. This is what the law states. Well, and it doesn't meet it, so we can't go any further. There's some lesser charges that we could maybe do, or if anything else comes up, or if somebody needs to talk to us. And there was another thing in there, which you alluded to, that the the suspect's wife,
Mm-hmm.
you know, some statements that he made, that they talked about.
Yep.
One was, I'm gonna take a plea bargain. And my daddy, you know, because my daddy, I'm not gonna do any time. Why would you even say that? And once again, here, I don't know that the sheriff's office has taken the time, because you hear the victim saying, hey, I sent you emails about this.
I don't read them.
And they done nothing about it. Why wasn't that sent to the detective and, hey, let's go interview her? And if she said that, well, then that bolsters my case.
Yeah. Maybe you don't want to bolster your case.
Yeah, because, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a councilman's son.
Exactly.
And he's been a councilman for how long? How many years? 20?
I think somebody
years?
said 6 terms or something. So
Quite
6 times 4 is 24 by my math. And I want to say this. As I said earlier.
But there's no politics involved in this.
Oh, none whatsoever. None. And I want to say this. I said earlier that not only had I not gotten irate emails from anyone, you know, about the matters we've been presenting, but quite the contrary, there have been 3 more incidents that have been reported to me where they allege very similar. Yeah, imagine that. Very similar. Mr. Matthews is quite aware of them. And that's why I wanted to make certain at the outset of this video that everyone knows that come October the 15th, none of these matters are over. I'm not in this. If it happens that he gets elected as a result of exposing this, I use the same criteria I use for doing any guest on this sound off feature. Do you have something to sound off about, and can you back it up? And I have yet to hear anyone say, now you did make a little thing about the high school diploma. Right. We all remember that. But you fixed that. And I fixed it too, you know. But I'm talking about the core element of what's going on. Not one person with any credibility has come up and said, you're wrong and here's why. Right. Okay? They just haven't done it. And
because you can't. You know, you can't dispute cold hard facts. And, you know, about the only thing you get is the questions of, what is your intention?
Yeah.
Well, why'd you wait till now?
Right.
Or, you know, when you exposed all this and you said you got resigned, why'd you go back to work for?
Right.
You know, I got bills to pay and council fees too, but I made sure that I retired on my terms.
Correct.
But which is why I'm here now and why I'm running for sheriff. This has got to change, ladies and gentlemen. Like I told you before, it ain't about the money. It ain't about none of that. It's about the men and women that live in the Central Parish that get screwed over.
Yeah.
Because they're not the uppity ups of the big companies that got all the money.
Boy,
and it's for the men and women who work there that get a black eye.
Yes.
Every time they let some crap like this slip through the cracks and they don't do nothing about it.
Exactly.
You know, I'm sorry. I couldn't hold my nose and continue working for a man who's a criminal. I'm sorry. Couldn't do it.
Well, I think on that note, I think everybody can say, and I want to reiterate, I mean, obviously, I'm a little biased. I can't vote, but I'm clearly pulling for Mr. Matthews to emerge victorious. But I want everyone to understand that if that doesn't happen, Robert Burns ain't going away. So with that, folks, hope everyone does participate in the election process, even though I'm being told that so far, absentee voting is about 30% below what it has historically been, and I guess that may be from fatigue, frustration, that nothing will change. I presented a candidate to you that I'm taking it as word that things will change and change dramatically.
Absolutely.
But even if he does not prevail, I'm so thrilled to know that he's not going to pull the parachute on me and say good luck to you. So one way or another, the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office is going to be in for some rude awakenings, no matter how the election turns out on October 14th. Thank everyone for tuning in. Please take the time and listen to that tape. Please take the time, because I don't think you're ever going to get, maybe you will. And look, I'd say this, when you are dealing with law enforcement, I mean, we have seen a number of instances where people were very wise to have recorded things. Billy Broussard, Carl Cavalier. So don't be shy about recording things. It's the only way you're going to be able to prove some things got said, okay?
Right.
But this hour and 15-minute audio, It is what it is. You're going to hear an awful lot of things. We weren't able to cover them all even.
Nope.
So take the time, listen to it. I think you'll find it extremely revealing.
Absolutely.
Thank you once again, and we'll have another Sound Off Louisiana feature again real soon. For now, everybody just enjoy your weekend, and let's pull for that cold front to materialize and get a little drop
And some
into
rain. We need some
and some rain. All righty, folks, we will see you next time.